Running Sentences presents Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure, Book 2, Part 9, The Void and Mysteries. Entering the Void is no easy business. Still, Cordite & Company, followed by the Grogians, give it the good old try. This story is written and narrated by Michael Henry. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, real situations, events, characters, businesses, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on is purely coincidental. Copyright 2023, Michael Henry. All rights reserved. The GCS Bruiser was charging up its engines as they were close to being next in line to fire themselves into the void. There were a few ships around them, trying to elbow their way into the line, but it wasn't their turn yet. No one, however, was able to ignore that the sprawling Tiger, the Grogian ship, which was also heating up its engines and encroaching in on the Bruiser. The line finally cleared of the last ship, and with all its engines on full, the GCS shot off towards the void, followed in short order, and moments later, by the Tiger. Hastily, Coral had brought Ophelia into the welcoming center of the space station, a 4-story building that had a grand lobby space, since they wanted to welcome people there. It is also where she'd hung the body of Pork from the rafters, extended down to drip blood down on any who came into the entranceway. Sitting at the welcome desk, and literally on it, Coral had Ophelia before her as the Black Cage pirates came into the building, spreading out with several dozen of them looking about. "Welcome to Space Station X, the home of all pirates. Who are you and what do you want?" Two stepped forward, looking at Ophelia first and then at the slightly hidden Coral behind her. She was only partially hidden, and the obvious sword was held to her victims to discourage anything. "I am the leader of this group, Captain Lewis. We are here to speak to Ophelia about what has happened." "Well, you're better off talking to Bardot than me. I don't know what's going on, but he controls in and out of here." "She's a liar, so I wouldn't trust what she says. I mean, she did lead you to try and head for the exit, didn't she? And I heard it did something to you, or did it not?" That was the grunt as the man who'd spoken before stepped forward. Ophelia easily recognized Lewis, who was approaching them, with a deep frown. "My concern is that there's something else hidden by this hostage you have." "And what would that be?" "The pirates who are arriving. We've seen them trying to come here. She has to know something about them." Ophelia frowned. "They're coming for treasure, all sorts of them, and probably a few that I know." "Who are they bringing, though, Ophelia?" "What? Why does that matter?" "Yes, why does that matter, Captain?" Lewis grimaced and shuddered. "I think I've managed to discover how one gets in and out of here." "Then please explain, since I'd love to know what's going on, and leave." "Oh, now you want to leave, Ophelia? Weren't you all about the treasure?" "I was until I became a headache in my lap recently. Now? I think this place is cursed for some reason." "It probably is, but after all, the pirate's treasure is always hidden away for a reason." There was a loud blare of a noise, and then the loudspeaker system came to life with Bardot speaking. "Excuse me, but I thought I might inform you about a new matter. 2 ships on the far side of the void have managed to get through. We've picked them up on radar." "Your friends, no doubt, Ophelia?" Ophelia shrugged to Lewis. "Well, they could be, yes. I've no idea if they are, though, with the state I'm in, and where I am currently I can't actually answer you." "The state you're in has something to do with this?" Ophelia had been shackled up so that she couldn't move much, merely shrugged as best she could. "I don't know, since I can't contact them to see what's going on." Coral turned to the Black Cage pirates. "Do you have any objections to us contacting these new ships?" "No, do as you wish, but we have a few questions first." She snarled at this, since it meant that there was more to be said about things. The less said, the better, and just accept that what was going to happen was now the way things were. But alas, she couldn't do that. Well, I'm waiting. I'll only answer one or two of these questions, so choose carefully. Why were so many pirates gathered at the port? Oh, those ones who let you in, I guess. Well, a riot broke out because of the computer. It took over control, thanks to that computer. That's Borat, by the way, who's taken over. He is taken over? Yes, and by the way, that's your second question, so no more answers after this. But yes, after telling me that he knew how to get out of here, he then took over this space station, and that's why I'm in the state I'm in, and that's why we're now leaving. The pirates stood there for a moment as Coral grabbed at Ophelia, jerking her so that she could be a shield between them and getting potentially shot at by laser rifles. The Black Cage group did nothing, though, as she backed away towards the door in the back and disappeared. Cordite had heard the warning that they were about to enter the void, but hadn't fully believed it was going to be the case. He'd been half asleep on his bed when it came, and despite his efforts to secure himself, he'd still been tossed out of the bed a minute later. Things felt like they'd managed to settle down, but there was also this eerie darkness that had swept about the ship, spilling over the walls and through any cracks it could find. It left him in a pitch-black room, blinking as he looked about, feeling rather lost and trying to stand up. Anyone else see this? He didn't know why he was crying out, but it was because he was alone in the room, and that was not actually an expected answer. But he wanted to feel a sense of normalcy at this moment, and it was then that some sort of malaise-like feeling of everything slowing down hit him full force, seeping into every part of him. The fuck is this shit? Get it off of me! He tried grabbing at the darkness that seemed to cross his body as he looked down towards it. His hand, though, was so slow to respond to his command before it, too, was covered in this bleak black darkness. Welcome back. The strange voice sounded so close to his ear, and so far away, and he would have jumped in surprise if he could. Even turning his head was a difficult thing to do. Who are you, and why are you welcoming me back? I have never been here. The lost souls of pirates welcome you along with the devious and the rich. And what the fuck do you mean by that? In this void? What's that got to do with anything? You're like the rest, aren't you? In search of treasure despite not knowing where you're going? Yes, but no. I don't care much about treasure, but the others do. My life is fine without it, mostly, I think. There was a heavy sound of wind rushing around his head, disorienting him even further. He found himself felt shrunken, and like it was about to get smaller if he moved about. Are you lying to me? No, I have no reason to do that. I don't know you. You and your ship will die if others tell me you're lying. My friends will say that I don't care much about the treasure stuff, or at least as much as utility does. Then why do you return? As I said, I've never been here. Your past, your present, and your future have all traveled here at one point. Now you travel it to seek things, and the future says your heir will come here as well. Cordite shook his head, trying to clear the voice out. None of that matters to me. I don't care about the future, the past, the present. I've never been here. In an instant, things returned to normal, as he was tossed to the ground once again, the dark black ink now long gone, and the room was filled with the usual lights aboard this ship. He blinked a few times, then got up and headed for the door to see if anyone else had experienced this weird shit. Nearby the room of Tullus and Nero, the two were sitting, and they were still in this darkness. That inky blackness sat there and filled them both with a bit of fear as it crossed over them, crawling all over. Neither was quite sure why fear was there, why they were so afraid of this, and that fear was creeping at them. Or why all of this suddenly felt very familiar. The royals are finally back. The distant sound of a voice that neither was not so unfamiliar with them brought them both looking around as best they could. Unfortunately, they barely could make out one another, even though they were sat across from one another on their own beds. "Who is that?" "An old friend lost to time and void." "You don't sound familiar to us." "Your parents failed to teach you, then?" "Among other things, yes, they probably did, though that doesn't tell us who you are." "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I am forgotten part of all of this. That is what you have the need to know." "Why are you here?" "Because it's where an adventure is." "Well, I am not my sister might be, but I'm not here for an adventure. My job is to make sure that Tulis doesn't get into trouble." "You don't need to do that, brother." "And the rest of your ship, what of them?" "Most are simply just following orders. I don't know about the group of pirates, though, since I don't trust them. That and their president is up to something." "Are you the guardian of this place, keeping aliens away? Weird voice?" The darkness that had covered the room felt like it was slipping away, and light was coming through the ceiling once again, breaking through the hazy weirdness. "Some might say that I am. I say that I have a job and life to live. This is what I do, and you would best avoid meeting me ever again." "Why?" "Death comes to those that cross me a second time, and since you don't seem to care for treasure, I will tell you a secret." "It's already gone? The treasure, I mean?" "Quite the opposite. It's in plain sight, but a sacrifice is required, both old and new." With that, the darkness swept away, leaving them sitting in their room, like it was nothing had ever happened. Confusion crossed their faces as they sat there waiting for things to connect in their mind. The darkness had spilled in the Queen and King's bedroom as they prepared to catch up on their daily nap. Neither had fallen asleep yet, though, and this pitch darkness woke them right up. "What is going on? Who is doing this?" "The Void." "What do you mean, Valence? What Void?" "Congratulations to the King. He knows his stuff. I am part of the Void and keeper of letting things through." "Oh, I see." "I must know why you're here." "Whoa, that's easy. To reclaim what was once rightfully ours." "Treasure hunting is no reason to come here." "Are you letting the other ship through, though? They're treasure hunters as well." The inky darkness started to crawl over them, grabbing at them, slowing everything down. "We will not let you stop us. Our travel through this void cannot be stopped by the likes of you." "Your sacrifice will be duly noted when the time comes, or you can turn around now. Your choice." By then, though, the room had returned to absolutely normal, with the inky blackness completely gone. Ever since his meeting with the King, Vic had mostly been left alone to wander the hallways of the sprawling tiger. He had 2 aliens following him about, sort of in the shadows, and hanging back as they tried to go unnoticed. He, though, didn't mind them, since he had nowhere to go at the moment. He couldn't go back to the cargo bay, because, well, he would likely be accosted by those, and he didn't actually have a room, so where to go? The announcement of entering the void, which had jolted things around a bit, had little effect otherwise. He did note that everything did feel like it was moving in a slow-motion fashion, but other than that, he'd taken a few steps forward when a sudden blob of darkness overtook him in a flash of light, and everything was gone. 1,000 or so whispers sounded like they followed, hitting his ears for a second, all combined in one, but oh so soft. He glanced around, but whatever it was didn't stick around, and the voices were gone as well as the darkness. Weirded out, he turned to his sort of not-so-invisible followers. "Did you see that?" One of them looked over to their fellow alien guard before looking to Vic. "No idea, sir. It was something that it wasn't." "It sounded like someone wanted to know why we're here, but I didn't really catch any of it, or all of it." Vic regarded them carefully, since he was sure that they would lie, given any chance to do so. The dazed look, though, that they had said they might not be totally lying, and they might be completely lost in what was going on. "Right, well, it's strange, and I don't think we should wait around here." An alarm echoed through the halls, followed by a computerized voice. "Attention, all hands on deck. Attention, all hands. The ship hull has been breached. We need everyone to stations as damage has been sustained." "That sounds bad. You need to go see to that." "No, we're assigned to you." "Great. Well, I don't want to be in your way, so is there somewhere I can go and curl up into a ball? It seems like that's the thing to do in these situations." One of them pointed towards a nearby door. "Your room for safekeeping is right there." With a bit of surprise, and not sure that he should trust it, Vic went over to it. The door zipped open to reveal a dark interior, and before he could react much, a boot met his ass and sent him sprawling inside. The GCS Bruiser popped out of the harsh travel space, with her engines heavily smoking. There was burn damage all over her structure, but it mostly appeared that the ship was intact. They did have a big problem as it lurched its way towards the massive Sunstar that was right in front of him. This was followed a second later by the sprawling Tiger, equally damaged and limping about as it too tried now to steer itself. There were a few other small ships that also had managed to follow him, but they were all in dire shape and appeared to have no control whatsoever as they flew towards the star. Ophelia had been roughly brought back to her ship by Coral, who then brought her up to the bridge. The crew, eager to leave, had been more than willing to depart the space station and were soon casting off their connections to it. All the while, Coral kept a blade and a gun at the ready for Ophelia, who grimaced but went along with any of this. "What are you hoping to accomplish, Coral?" "Command over all pirates. They've been leaderless for too long and allowed to do whatever they wanted. In this day and age, that only leads to getting people killed. Like you did to the pirates aboard the space station." The engines fired up and began hurrying them through space towards the now several dots on the other side of the system. "Well, no, that was different. That was a case of getting everyone aboard my mission. But now that that's been done, we can get on to doing what we've been meaning to do for a long time. Hunt this cursed treasure." Ophelia wanted to turn and stare at this crazed lady. At some point, something she said might make sense. That seemed like it would be very far away, and not any time soon now. "Radar ops, do you recognize any of the ships?" There was a moment's pause as screens flashed by, and then he came to a stop on the radar in front of them. "The two big ones, the Grogian ship and a galactic one. The small ones, we've got nothing on them." She wondered if that was good or bad news, since neither of those big ships were actually pirates. There was a chance that any of the small survivor ships could be, but unlikely, since the Grogians would have shot them out of space given the chance. "Radar, how soon until we are within identifying range of them?" "It would be about 30 minutes if we sped up." "Are they your friends?" The interruption by Coral was unwelcome, since Ophelia was trying to think fast if she could use this or not. There was no answer in her mind about how that might be possible, though. "There's always the chance, yes, and I'm guessing, since one of them is a galactic ship, that it might be carrying a diplomatic force that will have pirates aboard. It's a chance, but it's slim. Let us go see what they have, and hurry it up then." There was a nod from her crew. This was followed by a jab from the blade from Coral, who noted the nod and did not like what she was saying. "None of you try anything funny, by the way." "They won't unless you give them a chance to. We are pirates, after all, scavengers of space and things that get in our way. We know how things work. And, of course, since I don't trust you or believe you, Miss Ophelia, the space station will be following with its weapons trained on you. The remainder of my crew are aboard with my people, and the Black Cage pirates aren't going to help you either. They are on their own ship, and they're going to do whatever they want." The work, though, was being done by the crew as the ship surged forward, engines going hard to push them through the thickness of space. With alarms blaring and things feeling like they were shifting hard to the right, Utility was left scrambling. His hands were trying to grab at the switch to reveal his safety room. The book in the bookcase that would reveal that switch that wouldn't stay within his grasp as he tried to remain standing up. Things, though, were tilting further to the side, pushing him away from it. "What is happening? Why is my ship acting so funny now? Answer me, someone!" His secretary, who was by the door bracing themselves at the nearby wall, grimaced at this conversation. Utility glanced at him and realized he was there and not alone, and also frowned upon seeing him. "Apologies, but I'm freaking out a bit, and I was being rhetorical." "I understand, sir, but I doubt it will be helpful." "Well, there isn't much that would help us right now. Our ship seems to want to flip upside down with the way it's twisting." The door to the office had opened, and in came Francis, doing his best to keep his own feet below him and not slip backwards out. He managed to get himself stabilized along the same wall as the secretary, on the other side of where the door opened, not actually next to the alien. "Were you visited not long ago by a ghastly spirit?" "A what?" "The whispers in the darkness." Utility looked to his secretary, unsure if he should comment on such absurd things. There had been some noise he'd heard, and a fleeting look of something that had passed by his eyes, but it was momentary. It, however, hadn't stuck around or really talked to him much. It had said some stuff, and what could he say to this pirate who was seeking some sort of information on that? He had researched the void before, but no one really ever mentioned anything about that thing that they'd seen in there. What to do if you wanted to trust this pirate or not? "Why do you want to know about this?" "The guardian of the void, they call her. Those that hear her may survive. Those that don't might not make it out of this place. If you don't hear her, you have a problem." "I can vouch that the president heard her." That his secretary answered for him was a surprise, and he shot his alien secretary a look. How could his servant even have known such a thing? Was he traveling around with a spy of some sort who could read his mind? "Mr. President, your answer." "Vaguely heard something. I don't think it was speaking to me." "Not sure what that means, but I guess we will find out later if it's going to be bad for you or not." "What do you mean? The president should be fully in the know of these things." Francis grimaced and shrugged. There was little he could do or tell, but he would try. "I'll tell you more if I knew more. However, the spirit only told me so much before it just vanished off." "Why did that sort of creature do this to our ship, though?" Utility wasn't the least bit concerned with what had happened, or the voice, as much as what he was getting himself into. The tilts had gotten worse as Utility lost his grip on the book that he'd sort of retained and sent him skittering across the floor. It was lucky that his secretary was there and actually voluntarily caught him before he would slam into the wall. "I don't know, but I think that was us traveling through the wormhole, or whatever it was that we went through. That's just the price we pay." The ship's alarm systems now sounded. "We are taking all measures to avoid a nearby star. Please be ready for anything, and get to the closest escape pods for an increased chance of survival." "Sir, we should leave." "No, we should not. The closest pod is inside that safe room. It wouldn't be a cool safe space if we didn't actually have that." Utility had gotten out of his secretary's grasp and began the process of clambering, as best he could, back to the bookcase across the room. It wasn't easy going, and he had to pause halfway across. "Oh, yes, and thank you for your help, Mr. Secretary. That was quite the save. It is much appreciated." "Are you going to abandon everything just like that? The escape pod is your only thought?" "I got through that mess that was holding civilizations back from discovering what was beyond it. My job is to survive and find the treasure for the betterment of our galaxy. If that means I have to leave, then I will do so." As the ship corrected itself and reduced its lean to one side. Now a little more easily and able to reach the book, Utility yanked at it, revealing the secret passageway and door behind it. "Will you be able to find it, though? I've heard there are other pirates here who've been searching for a long time and found nothing." Pausing as he approached the door to the safety room, Utility looked back at his secretary and then to Francis. The pirate had his arms crossed and an all too serious look about him. Well, it wouldn't do whatsoever, and there would be no escaping uneasy questions, since the pirate was bigger and probably also stronger than him. "I'm only going in to be near the escape pod. It's the right thing to do, and everyone is going to be doing the exact same thing. If the ship survives, no harm, no foul. This is all about survival for those with a bit of intelligence, Pirate Francis." He then stepped over to the door, hitting a few keys on the door pad, and caused it to pop open. Utility then signaled for his secretary to follow him as he entered his safe room. The door was soon closing, blocking Francis from viewing them any more. Corday had found his way out of his room and hurried towards the main escape deck. There were, of course, several areas where one could use to get out and use escape pods, but this deck had the most and the best pods for such things. By the time he got in there, though, the area was filled with aliens who didn't have important jobs, and they were milling about waiting for further orders to do anything. It didn't take much to find his own group of companions, who'd gathered into a space a little ways away from the mess of aliens. Counting heads, he noted that only Francis appeared to be missing. "Everyone okay?" "Yes, so far all of us seem to be healthy." "Mentally as well?" That drew a bit of a confused look from Doc Mott, and studied his not-so-bright and cheerful expression for a moment. "Why do you ask that, Captain?" "I heard people heard voices while we traveled through whatever that was, and to wherever we currently are. Anyone else hear those types of things?" The group shared a long look amongst one another, no one speaking up yet. Once there was a satisfying nothing from any of them, they turned back to Corday, and he shook his head. "Look, whatever it wasn't going to hurt us. Not right now, anyway. But perhaps listen to whatever it had to say to you." "The Guardians, you mean?" Francis had come up behind and tapped Corday on the back as he came up to stop next to him. "If that's what spoke to us, then sure." "Was it?" Francis provided the briefest of overviews of what had been told to him by the Guardian and what had been going on. Mostly, she was there to stop anyone who didn't deserve to be there. "Wouldn't that put Utility in a bad spot, though?" With a nod to the princess, Francis spoke. "I had much the same thought, so I went to visit him. He's perfectly fine and intent on finding that treasure, though." "Oh." "And we also have your parents, who are following us, according to my sources." "What? They were ahead of us in their departure. Shouldn't they have already be there?" "Yes, and they were following us when we went through the void. They apparently stopped and let us go before them. If the Guardian didn't like them, then things might be bad aboard that ship. That's all I'm saying. You should be prepared to hear that news." Nero and Tulis shared a look with one another that showed quite a lot of worry, along with lip-biting. "I don't want them to die. We may not like each other much, but death is a bit much." "They deserve worse than that." Getting off of that for a moment, did the Guardian thing tell you something about them? The princess and prince looked over in quite a bit of panic, and then the princess shook her head no. Not about them. It was vague and a rather broad statement that anyone could take anywhere if they believed the words that were said. It's probably more about confusing us and making sure we are pure or something. I didn't trust her words. It's all very weird. Care to share what it was that she said? No, Cordite, not yet. Mostly because it doesn't make any sense to me. It was very weird. The ship now feeling much more centered from its lean, the loudspeaker came to life once again. We have stabilized things. You don't need to worry about abandoning ship. Things are good. You can return to your stations. Instantly, the sailors began to sort themselves out and filtered out of this main escape pod deck. The group of pirates and Grogians, though, stayed where they were, waiting until things were all clear. I don't think going after this treasure is a good idea, by the way. Is that because of what it said to you, Francis? No, it feels like there's more going on here and we aren't being told about it. An alarm rang throughout the ship, and they all looked about, trying to see what was going on now. Other than the red light, though, there was nothing for the moment. And then the computer crackled to life once again. Warning, 2 ships in a space station have been spotted. They do not look friendly. All hands to stations, ready for action. Well, this is turning to look quite the fuck about. I guess we should go find something to do to keep busy and out of the way. There was a lot of hesitant looks from the group to Cordite's comment and question. Still, they began heading off to find somewhere else to be. The GCS Bruiser, along with the sprawling Tiger, avoided the star and the heat that it produced by the barest of margins. The pull of gravity was incredibly strong as they'd gotten closer and closer, but thanks to the action of the crew, both managed to keep to the right side of getting away. Once they were able to get far enough away, though, without checking for much damage, the 2 set off full steam for the closest planet. It was a small dot amongst many that seemed to pop up everywhere they looked. With engines on full power, though, they did their best to ignore that there were now 2 ships and a space station that were apparently closing in on them. Neither ship offered to communicate with one another as they ran to the planet. A hive of activity kept the captain of the bridge busy with all that was happening. Chasing after the GCS Bruiser was no easy task, not with her extra engines and abilities and everything else. He watched as reports streamed over his computer screens, about all of them offering some different take on what was going wrong with their ship. They had taken quite a beating getting through the thick of space, and of course the king and queen probably would be nagging him at any second about what had happened. There was no good answer, and even if he had a good one... Captain, we're 2 clicks from entering the atmosphere of that planet we're headed towards. Hold steady. Ship's data officer, what do you have on the planet? It's a planet filled with rich life and biodiversity. Apparently supports oxygen of all levels. Then keep on a straight trail of that ship. Aye, but why are we doing that, sir? They're leading us to treasure. Why else would the royals go mad? The hiss of the door caught the captain's attention a fraction too late. Excuse me? The captain turned to look over to see the queen. I'm sorry, your highness, but a treasure makes everyone go mad. Royals do not go mad for such things. There was a moment's pause as Devos tried to come up with another excuse. There was nothing coming to him, though, so he turned back to what he was doing, all with the hope that she wasn't about to do something to him. No answer to that? I said what I said, Queen. There are more pressing matters to attend to with the ship in this state. She marched up to him merely inches away from where he was, hot breath brushing against his neck and made him squirm as he wanted to get away. Do not push me. What is wrong with our ship? Instead of answering her directly, he turned to his officers. Data officer, answer the Queen. Engines are half power thanks to something going on with them. Shields are at half power and flickering because it's not fully working. The hull is broken in spots and breached in others. The ship will hold up otherwise, though. There you go. Currently everything that we know is wrong. The Queen, however, didn't say anything as the ship began to shake at the stress from entering an atmosphere of the nearby planet. Everyone grabbed a hold of things as the ship rattled for a little while longer, and then everything settled down again. The two ships dropped heavily through the air as they tried to navigate in this new situation. Using all the power they could, both managed to avoid smacking into the water of this mostly water planet. Jets of the ocean and the roar of the engines, deafening all things around them, coated what could be seen for a moment before the two ships began heading for the nearest landmass. There were no other ships that appeared as they crossed over this land, and over the water, eventually finding a clear spot where the GCS Bruiser could land. However, there was only enough space in this area for that one ship. The sprawling Tiger had to scurry off to find another location, though it wasn't too far away. The hues of pink grass and variation of pink planets, from light to darker, greeted the first few sailors off of the GCS Bruiser. They were fitted out in spacesuits to be on the safe side, and it happened to be Cordite in the lead along with his friends. The suit was reading off regular numbers, telling him it was A-OK to lift off his helmet, but he wasn't ready to take that chance yet. He wasn't even fully off the gangplank yet, nor had he gotten close to observe the plants and if they might cause any problems getting close to them. His foot now crunched down against the rough, hard-feeling grass that seemed to support his weight for a second, and then collapsed to the dirt below, sinking his foot a good couple of inches deep. Mr. President, why are we here exactly? Does this planet have some sort of connection to the treasure? He said this over his comms, which then spoke to life. Yes, it does, Mr. Cordite, yes, it does. Could you fill me in then, please? My research, or rather my workers who researched for me, said we needed to find a planet filled with pink plants. I'd say we found it, wouldn't you? Cordite cast a glance around with a heavy sigh. There was a lot of pink here, but that didn't mean it was the place. End of Part 9 of Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure, Book 2. Thank you for listening.